let's talk about the global assembly cache. We're going to be looking at two projects within our usual folder, namespaces and assemblies. We're looking at the global assembly cache EX file. EX is just example. And then the GAC test client, global assembly cache test client. This is a class library, and this is going to be our test condition to test that class library. And we can just open up this project. We're going to place it in the global assembly cache after we compile it, and I'll show you how to do that. And we'll actually explain everything in great detail. Simple namespace, no big deal. Just a long name, so don't worry about the long name, just a long name. We have a class within this namespace. We have a string alias here that's going to have a method here, return uppercase, pass in a string, get the uppercase string out. And we're going to have ints that are going to be multiplied together, A and B. And then we're going to return the multiplication back out as an int. Maybe you want to use it as long, change it to long, as you see fit. That's a simple class library that we're going to work with. Then we have assemblyinfo.cs. We're working on that manifest now, using the assemblyinfo.cs. This is going to be built into our executable, into our assembly. So we need to specify a title. I gave it the same name, a description. You could add configuration information, company information, product information if that's it, copyright and trademark, and a culture if it's English or if it needs to be another culture, you can place that in there. And then we give it a version number. We actually specify 1.0.0.0, major version, minor version, build version, revision. So if this is important to you, you're going to want to specify all three, and you should use the most that you can put here. Use all three there besides your major. Additionally, at the end, after all of this commented code, basically we're going to go over all of that. So this is telling us that we can have a key file here. This is going to get that trust there, that strong name and the key. That's going to be the trust that's going to allow this to go into the global assembly cache. The key is very, very important. We're going to use the utility sn.exe, strong name, to create the strong name, which is going to contain a key. So you get .snk, strong name key. And you can also just put .key or whatever you want this to be. This is going to be worked out in the folder within or where our actual source files are going to be. We have to place it there. It's there now, so I can actually build this. But that's it to get this started. We'll look at the details as we move forward. We can just build this. Now it's built, successful, but if you wanted to try to start with debugging, since it's a library, this is telling you it's a class library output type. Well, you can't start it directly. So in order to debug this, you have to work with some debugging work within this. So it's a little bit more complicated to actually get that started to debug it, but it's not going to pop up a window because it's a class library. And from the build configuration manager, we're looking at the release instead of the debug, just to show you that there's a difference between the two. You could get the release going instead of the debug version of that, and then you could work with that and test that within the global assembly cache. Just trying to tell you that you're going to test your libraries very, very good, to the point that you're going to want them to be release versions before you even start playing around with the global assembly cache. You don't have to, but of course it makes sense to. So we'll take a look at that output directory. We're going to just find it here. Here it is. And we have a few folders open. So anyway, we'll go into our bin directory. We'll find that within the release. We just compiled that, so we copy that. And we're going to place it somewhere. We're going to paste it, not into the global assembly cache, which you see here. First, we're going to paste it into C # my assemblies. Just overwrite. And what that does is, this allows you to actually have these assemblies ready for you on your machine that you can reference within Visual Studio. I'll show you that as well. You could also copy these directly into, we'll just drag it directly into the global assembly cache. And we'll just slide down. This is a development machine, so there are quite a few different global assemblies here. As you can see, it's going to look more deep than yours, maybe. You have a version, and then we have a public key token, which was grabbed out of that SNK file. So you could also do right-click and get properties as well. You'll see that the code base is going to be here. This is better than having the code base within that debug directory, for example, because you know it's done, you've moved it somewhere, everything's okay. Now, within our client, We'll take a peek at the client. Within our client, we're looking at the class 1 file. You can see that we're just using the file. We're just using that assembly there. No big deal. The namespace. We specify our namespace, but we don't use a using and a namespace or anything like that. Well, we're directly referencing whatever is going to be in that folder